Welcome back, everyone, to another Thursday. That means it's another gear talk. Alrighty, so, aside from the last video we did, talking about Mira and everything, which I got a lot of good feedback on that one. Like, the people who watched it and I talked to, they enjoyed what they saw. So, it makes me happy to be getting closer to the end of the Hive Buster discussions. Because don't get me wrong, like, it's a great group. I've been talking about these guys for a long time, and we're getting close to the end. I've got a few more things to talk about with character interactions, which one of them we're talking about today, and maybe we got Hana next, maybe two more characters, definitely one more after that, but maybe one more depending. Anyway, we'll get to that when we get to it. Today we're talking about the relationship between Mac and Keegan. Now there's not a lot of relationship videos I can really make that don't involve like the main cast or like Hoffman. Even the Kim and Rom video was like Rom was the main enemy of the first game. Like, you know, and it's funny. It's another video I want to do where Marcus and Rom don't really have that much of character interaction or relationship, very minimal, which is kind of funny since they fight each other in the end, but I digress. Today, with Keegan and Mac, pretty much why they have the animosity they have, leading into how they really do become friends. I don't throw Lonnie into this because Lonnie was kind of the peacemaker for everything. You know, Mac and Keegan were constantly at each other's throats. Even in the comics, for a brief moment, they have an interaction like that where, like, it's sparked again, but it's quickly put away when, like, Lonnie explains things to Keegan on how people are dealing and coping. So we're just kind of going to cover, like, the relationship history that leads into what we have now. So you can't really talk about these two without talking about where both of them come from. You have Keegan being Onyx Guard with the Cog, and then you have Mac. He's essentially, well, he's not essentially, he is an outsider. Essentially stranded, I should say. Because there's kind of a history to why they automatically don't see eye to eye before we even get to these two meeting. So when you have the Cog and the Stranded back in the day, back in the original story, some of the Cog were kind of, I don't know the right word, sympathetic towards the Stranded, because they did see, like, we did kind of cause this problem with the hammer strikes. So you have people like Dom, who they don't hate Stranded, they see it more like you're living your choice of life. Yeah, the Cog kind of screwed you guys over pretty bad. The Stranded automatically just hate the Cog, just 100% want them gone because of what they did. Which, to be fair, after the hammer strikes, kind of an okay thought to have with their situation. So that's how it was back then. They were able to coexist, but it was really shaky. Even at one point in the books, the Stranded came to save the Cog. It was a one-time thing pretty much, but they did it. They were able to live their own lives, kind of. Now, jump forward, and you have the current situation with the Outsiders and the new Cog. This is different, because the Outsiders do not like how the Cog run things. Even Marcus. Marcus is not really an outsider, he's more just like a hermit by the beginning of 4. But even Marcus was like, I don't like how this is going, I don't like the direction, I want nothing to do with this. And he left. Marcus, a tried and true soldier, left the Cog. Outsiders see it like that, and you have outsiders who don't like how the Cog is run, former Cog, and even the former Stranded have become the Outsiders. So the Outsiders live away from it all, their own societies, they want nothing to do with them, and this ticks off the Cog, because the Cog see it as, we're trying to restructure everything, and you guys are the outlying problem now. And the Outsiders see it as, you guys are just, in the words of many of them, nothing but fascists. This is pretty much a dictatorship, which the Cog kind of is like that sometimes. And they just straight up hate how the Cog runs things. And again, some of them are stranded. They have not forgotten what the Cog did. So they're not going to sit there and be like, sure, the people who originally hammer-striked us are gone, but you guys are now taking up the title of the people who hammer-striked us. So we want nothing to do with you. And now, since Jin's in charge, the Cog is like, well, that's going to be a problem. So going from there, we have Keegan with the Cog and Mac with the Outsiders. And they meet. And originally how it is seen is, Keegan just sees, I don't even know what the right word to say is. He thinks he's a civilian at first when they first meet. And they're like, why are they bringing a civilian into all of this? Why is a civilian coming with a Cog operation? Which it turns out is not a Cog operation. And what is this guy, what are they doing bringing him here? There has to be a reason. Later on, he learns that Mac is an outsider. This is where problems occur, because Keegan is a tried and true Cog. He truly believes in everything the Cog stands for and fights for the Cog, specifically Onyx Guard, but Cog in general. Here's the thing. Mac Mac is just living his life. He's just an outsider. He does not like the COG because of how they run things. He doesn't like the whole mission-centric over people ideal, which Keegan has. And this is where the heads start butting. They don't like working with each other for the reasons I just said. And it just turns into this situation where they're both trying to coexist and do things their way, but the other keeps getting in the way. With Keegan, Mac is just saying, we're going to do what we need, people first in this mission, and we're going to do this the quickest way we can to get the mission done with. For Mac, he sees Keegan as, this man is going to lead us into a suicide mission. We're going to die here. Just because this man wants to follow orders, we all have to die. And Keegan, by the way, is 100% fine with that ideal, which even rubs Mac even worse. And Lonnie the entire time is in the middle of just like, let's just get the mission done. We'll take care of this, and we're all going to go on our happy ways. Like, Lonnie, the entire DLC and story, is the middleman the entire time. And the comics are focused on Mac mostly. Obviously, it's focusing on the others, but Mac is the main focus. The DLC, it's all three of them. So you get this viewpoint more when it comes to the comics for that one moment where these two have an interaction again where they butt heads for a moment. Let's jump over to Sanctuary and talk about Sanctum. Sanctum, I believe. I keep getting mixed up. I take 3 weeks off and I do a different video and I'm forgetting words already. This is where the whole mission situation comes into focus. And they just constantly are at each other's throats. Constantly arguing. This is the point where Mac just takes the Venom bomb and chucks it down and says, that's what I think of the mission. There, it's in, we're done. And of course this doesn't go right, which reinforces Keegan's thoughts even more of like, why would you do this? Why would you go ahead and just throw the mission away? And Mac's rebuttal is, we're not all going to die for nothing here. We're all going to run down there, get 3 more floors down and die. That's how it's going to go. And to be fair, Mac was right in that situation. Not throwing the bomb, but they would die. He was 100% right. So they're constantly butting heads. The mission ends. They go through lava and everything, still arguing. And they finally are heading back to see Hoffman. And you really think a fight's going to break out at this point. You really think they're about to throw down. And honestly, I thought so too. I thought it would have been a great addition. Just like a few punches thrown. Nothing quite like that happens where they fight. It's just more arguing. And it finally gets to the point where they have to go figure out the Venom situation. And they can put their rivalry aside for a few moments when they get here. Because Hana ends up getting taken. Everyone on the island of Lonnie's home island is potted and taken. Pretty much killed. And that's when, for a brief moment, you can see that they understand that there's some bigger issues going on. They understand that, hey, everyone in this world could easily die if we don't come together right now. They get that. They jump in. They do what they need to do. They show that there's some teamwork going on. They rescue Hana when it gets to the point she gets kidnapped. And you finally start to understand, okay, you guys hate each other, but you understand there's a larger point that we need to take care of. You know, Lonnie's saddened by this, so she's not really playing middleman at this point because she's dealing with her mental stress of her entire village people gone. So they have to step up and be like, okay, we're not going to let stuff like this happen ever again. We're gonna deal with this. And at this point, okay, we finally have some of the layers coming undone. Okay, it's not just about sides, it's about a joint unit, which we finally get that in the second to last chapter of the entire game DLC, I should say. Which, to be fair, side note, they easily need to make a Hivebuster game itself. I would pay top dollar for that. I easily think this DLC, one act, is better than all of Gears 5. I'm sorry, my opinion, I think that's the truth. So, they go over, and throughout the entire time, Mac has been bringing up little hints of like, this doesn't seem right, why are we all here? Like, why were we the chosen ones? The chosen ones, yes, Mac the chosen one. And it just culminates in like, finally, Keegan is starting to come around to the idea, very slowly, but he's starting to. Lonnie's already kind of back and forth on it, because even Lonnie's like, some of this ain't making sense. But the idea of like, we're here, it's a rogue operation, there is no backup, we're the backup, nothing else is coming. That finally sits into Keegan, and he has to have a talk with Hoffman. And this leads into this situation where it was our lives on the line. You told me it was a goddamn rogue mission. Keegan's way of having a mental breakdown. And Mac is there just, again, like, this is Keegan. His idea of the COG, his ideals and morals are put into question, learning he's in a rogue operation, and one of the heroes of the COG have given him this rogue operation. for Mac, this really isn't a big thing. This is kind of him just, like, getting back at the Swarm. Keegan, this is more like, there's not even a mission, what the hell? And this is where Keegan finally kind of breaks down his ideals into, like, okay, there's obviously more important things we have to deal with than just, I'm Cog or I'm Onyx Guard. Mac again brings up at this point, like, my family was taken, my son is gone, you know, everything I cared for is gone. I'm pretty much here for revenge. And that's the point where they all rally together. Lonnie's with them, and Keegan's like, not really saying what he said, but like, I'm already on a rogue mission, might as well keep doing it. Like, what else do we really do? And this is where, like, the Brotherhood finally begins. They finally join into one cohesive unit. And it's finally, after going through this entire act, because, again, the DLC is only one act, we finally get them as a team. In the end, they're sitting there like, I will follow you to death, brother. Same for you, brother. We're in this together. They get to the end. As a team, they take down the Wakatu. It's symbolic. You know, when they were all doing their own thing, they weren't able to complete their task. But as a unit, they're able to. That's the point of, like, the underlying theme of this DLC. Like, Team Scorpio's beginning. And man, I love it when it comes together because it's not really thrown down your throat like other stories that do this. And oh man, it was so much better than some of the stuff you see in media these days. Touching up quick now on the comic series, because there's not much except for 2 points in the entire story. We get the comic series, and as it goes through, again, they're all on the same page, nothing's wrong, because this takes place after the DLC, and it begins when they go back to Sanctum to take it down. They take it down, and, you know, everyone's on the same page. Mac, Lonnie, Keegan, they're all promised what they want in the end. Mac's going on another mission. Keegan and Lonnie say, we'll come with. You're our brother. It's Team Scorpio going at it again. And again, like, it seems fine. Everything seems good. But then you get to later on. And I believe, I need to remember what part it happens, because I believe they end up in Croya when he says this. He brings up the Cog, and he brings up, like, Mac is talking about the Cog in a negative light. I believe it is Croya. I believe Croya. If not, it's the shack outside of Croya. But he's there talking about it. And he brings up, oh, the great and mighty Cog. And Keegan does take offense to this. And he openly, verbally says, like, hey, your father fought with the Cog. Some of the people, good people, died for the Cog. Watch what you say. And, of course, Mac is still being sarcastic about it all, and he just doesn't really care, but he's like, oh yeah, praise the Cog. There still is animosity towards the sides. It's not like just because they work together, they see each other's perspectives perfectly, and Mac thinks the Cog are great soldiers, and Keegan sees the outsiders as like, oh, you know, they're just living their own lives. They're not traitorous. Of course not. I mean, why would I want to live outside of these people who gave me my entire life and joy? I mean, what? That's kind of how it goes. And again, it's a really minor part. It's only like maybe 3 panels long. There's really like no reason to go over it. Because again, it's Mac being a smartass. That's pretty much what it is in that entire part. And then the final part we get is at the shack outside where he's fixing up Old Reliable. And this is where he's sitting there, he's fixing things up, saying, I can get this going, I'm fine. And this is where Keegan verbalizes like, hey, like, you need to take this serious for the moment. Like, we don't know what's happening right now. And Mac is still joking, and Keegan says, like, hey, I'm being serious here. Something could happen. You're out on your own. We don't know the situation. And then Mac finally gets serious for a moment and says, hey, I've got this. Everything's fine. I'll take care of it, and I've got everything here. Then they go upstairs and separate. Mac is working on Old Reliable, and Keegan and Lonnie are upstairs drinking. And this is, they go through and check the house, find some beers, and they figure they'd watch out the window while they drink. They didn't just go in and abandon Mac. But then they go in, and Keegan is kind of fumed, like, why doesn't he take anything seriously? Like, is this all a joke to him? And Lonnie sits down and talks to him, and it's a really good scene. Where she says, like, we're all handling loss and this entire situation in different ways. Everyone has their own way of dealing with it. Mac's way is being a smartass. That's pretty much how he's coping. He's just kind of like putting his emotions on autopilot and just being a dick. That's how he's doing it. He says, for you, Keegan, like, you're always not holstering, but holding onto your gun and having it in your hand. You're always having something in your hands. Your Lancer is what you choose to have. And then Keegan asks Lonnie, like, okay, what do you do to cope? And it's implied, it's not openly said by her, but it's implied because they're drinking. She holds up the bottle that she's drinking, the beer, or whatever they're drinking. I'm guessing beer. And she holds it up to kind of symbolize, like, I drink. that's how she copes. So Mac is a smartass. Keegan just holds on to his Lancer, something he holds from his past, and Lonnie drinks. That's kind of the implication of how they deal with their problems. And this kind of opens up Keegan's mind to understanding, like, okay, Mac is obviously dealing with a lot of stuff. This is his home turf. He's been to both of these towns because they're in Croya right now, outside of Croya. And he's like, he's dealing with this in his own way. Like, there's no reason to be digging into him if he's dealing with it. And that's really the last time they have a situation like that. Like, after that, everything is kind of hunky-dory. The team works as a team. Again, the comics came out before the DLC. So they probably weren't building on that kind of feud they both had going on in the DLC. Like, the comics barely have anything of it. So, yeah, that's kind of it. Like, they go through everything else like normal. Everyone gets injured in the end, but they all live. They're all still a team, and that's just how it goes. That's the end of the feud and rivalry these two held. And that's honestly going to do it. Like, I can't think of anything else with these two. Like, it's just really interesting to see how the COG and Outsiders interact with an individual basis when it comes to stuff like this, especially with Keegan and Mac, who have their own personal baggage they're carrying. And you know, I don't do a lot of these relationship videos because there's not a lot of them to talk about. Like, aside from, like, Marcus, who has a lot of them with the rest of the crew from Delta. Baird has a lot of them. Cole has some. Dizzy really doesn't have much. But then you have these two, and it's like there is something to talk about involving these two and their story. It's something interesting to see. But yeah, that's going to do it. Next video coming up is going to be Hana. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Again, I'm getting close to done with Hive Busters. It's taken a while, but I'm getting close. So thank you guys for watching. I want to thank everyone for making this possible. Thank the patrons for making this possible. I will see you guys in the next video of Gear Talks or Let's Plays or whatever comes up next. Who knows? Later.